From one user losing everything in 0 DTE options on his birthday, to another user losing $2 million in a week, we're gonna go over the dumbest WallStreetBets trades of October. Ultimately, Will Win is a user who traded himself into debt. His story starts off fairly pleasant though, with his first post being made on August 18th. His Oscar Health shares were up nearly $4,900 and worth just about $75K in total. His portfolio wasn't very diverse, but as long as Oscar Health kept on rising, he would be A-okay. Things were not A-okay. He sold Oscar Health and lost it all in risky options. The worst part of it is that this loss wasn't even fueled with his own savings. Instead, he took out a $50,000 personal loan hoping that he would be able to double or triple it. Now, he's $50K in the can and wants to know if there's a chance to recover or if he should just quit trading. He said that he shared this so that others can learn and avoid repeating his mistakes. He planned on seeking God's help and getting on the straight and narrow. A week and a half later though, we got another update and he definitely didn't quit trading. He made his way up to 11.3K from $1,800. A week ago, I posted about my huge loss and drowning in debt. Instead of completely quitting, I decided to fight back. I am hoping I can repeat this cycle again next week and finally dig myself out of this hole. Some people left optimistic comments, but others kept it pretty real. A few days later, he was feeling very bearish and threw $6,000 into 0 DTE SPY puts. Usually, I would say that this was a horrible idea, because it was, but it was October 10th. AKA the day that Trump announced 130% tariffs on China. SPY fell 2.7% by the end of the day, and his puts were miraculously worth $170,000. Except he didn't own those puts anymore. Instead of holding throughout the day, he sold for a $570 gain that morning. That old guy 7863 said, "Yo, no one ever went broke taking profits, bruh." But our professional trader said, "My man, I am already broke. This would have changed my portfolio and life." Just under 7K in his portfolio, it doesn't seem like he's gonna catch a break anytime soon. Another user pointed out that he's driving with 5% battery left while screenshotting Robinhood to post to WallStreetBets. So yeah, really just think about that and let that sink in. Wandering Tofu is a user who has made and lost millions of dollars all in the past few months. Wandering Tofu's most recent post was just made in the middle of October, but his journey on WallStreetBets starts back in 2020. With 83 cents in his portfolio and a $26,000 loss for the year, things weren't looking promising at all. Apparently, he was buying GameStop calls, but he was just a month too early. It's also funny looking at the comments where people made fun of him for having a $24 GameStop call and a $40 Palantir call, cause of course, those had historical legendary runs. I would show you his profit on GameStop when it finally did start pumping in 2021, but instead of posting screenshots of his portfolio, he just kept on posting this meme of a chimpanzee astronaut. There were some signs that he made money though. Wandering Tofu took a few year-long break from posting to the subreddit, but finally came back in 2025. A lot of portfolios took a tumble on Liberation Day, but his took an especially big tumble. With only $500 in his portfolio after starting the year with 124K, Wandering Tofu says that Nvidia calls just got the best of him. He wasn't going to quit his trading journey though, so he deposited another $10,000 and got back to work. Google's share price dipped quite a bit, but Wandering Tofu felt like it was massively underpriced. The stock was trading at about $150 a share, but he felt like it would make its way up to $250 in no time. That being said, he YOLO'd into calls that expired in about 2 months. And by August 13th, his trade definitely paid off. He posted a screenshot of his portfolio that was now worth $286,000. He rode Google's wave from $150 to $200 and took $10K to not even just $286K, because he said that he also made a $50,000 withdrawal. So once you adjust for that, he really made his way to $336K. Wandering Tofu stayed humble though and said not to celebrate too early and check back in with him at the end of the year to see if he held on to his profit. 11 days later, he in fact did not lose it all. His portfolio rose over $90,000 just for the day and was now worth over $500,000. But that's not even the crazy part. The following day was a very very fruitful one. Google won an antitrust lawsuit and the stock rose over 9% for the day. His once $10,526 portfolio was now worth more than 1.5 mil. Only Farmers said, "You, sir, are about to be your own wife's boyfriend." It gets even crazier from there because he stayed bullish on Google and took his $1.5 million portfolio to $3.8 million on Monday, October 6th. But this would end up being a bearish week for the stock, unfortunately. Google fell by just about 6%, but Wandering Tofu's portfolio fell by a whole lot more than just 6%. 3.78 million turned into 1.6. So yeah, he lost over $2 million in a week. He went from 124K to 500, deposited 10K, and went to almost 3.8 million and was now back down to 1.6 mil. But instead of quitting while he was ahead, he wanted to keep on pushing his luck. He held 4,000 Google calls at the $255 strike price and 900 Apple calls at the $260 strike price. This was his latest update, and these calls expire at the end of the month, so only time will tell if he's gonna end up back at Wendy's again. YOLOing your whole portfolio on 0 DTE SPY options is never a good idea. All it takes is one optimistic tweet and you'll be heading to your nearest Wendy's to pay that month's rent. But with Imperial Trader Funding, the sponsor of today's video, you can make big trades without risking your nest egg. Imperial Trader Funding is a first-of-its-kind prop trading firm that allows you to trade stocks, options, and more with their money. You put up a small, set amount of capital, pass an evaluation, and they let you trade with up to $125,000 in real funding. This means you can trade with a lot of money, but if things go wrong, you're only out $100 instead of $100,000. It lets you put your skills to the test. And hey, if you realize you're not the greatest trader, you can stop there, and you'll have saved your actual portfolio from taking a hit. They let you trade anything from 0 DTE options to complex delta neutral strategies like short strangles or iron condors. You trade, they provide the capital, and you keep up to 90% of the profits depending on the account you select. On top of this, they're giving viewers of the channel a 10% discount if you sign up with the link down below in the description and use code YUMMERS, and a free 10K evaluation to the first 100 people. So be sure to check it out if you're interested. Jolliffe is a user that made so much money that his wife finally came back to him. Jolliffe started off his trading journey with just about $90,000 back in April. He was scrolling through YouTube and stumbled across a video talking about how AI was going to completely destroy humanity in the future. This is when he first learned about ChatGPT, which is honestly a little bit late. He must have been living under a rock the past few years, but anyway, he was pretty impressed with it. So much so that he was willing to bet his life savings on it. He asked ChatGPT what the big AI plays were, enabled margin on his Robinhood account, and threw everything on the line. Flash forward a few months, and his $90,000 portfolio grew to $205K. Best of all, he actually sold and locked in his gains. My wife is absolutely thrilled with my genius fiscal performance. So much so that I'm her new boyfriend now. All jokes aside, this is more money than both of their yearly salaries combined, so he is very grateful. Andy Top is a user who likes flying very close to the sun. He's actually been making interesting investments for over a year and a half now. Back in March of 2024, he said, "I think I am cooked." Down about $2,600 on Nvidia calls, things were looking risky, but these were still honestly baby numbers. Don't worry though, he was working on it, and only one day later, he came back with more. He was down about 95% over the past month, and now his portfolio was worth just under $400. 2 months later, he posted a screenshot of his DWAC, aka DJT puts, that were actually up about $500. Except it doesn't look like he sold, and the stock literally doubled in price the next week, which would have completely wrecked these puts. Don't worry though, he was about to actually start making profitable trades. Or maybe not, because he posted this only 5 days later. Okay, for real this time, maybe he was ready to turn his portfolio green. His next trade was a very modest one, because, well, his portfolio didn't have much money in it anymore. But anyway, he threw about $600 into out-of-the-money Oracle calls that expired in a week and a half. Oracle reported earnings that night, and to the surprise of investors, they had gobsmacking cloud demand numbers. The stock immediately jumped over 20% after hours, and Andy Top crapped his pants. Robinhood's contract value simulator showed a nearly $19,000 gain, which would be all his as long as Oracle held its price. And sure enough, it did, and he sold for $21K. $600 to $21,000 gave him a much needed win, but he got back to the reckless trading only 2 weeks later. He posted a screenshot of his unrealized $2,500 loss on Apple, and just what the heck. 1 week after that, he was back at square one. He completely wiped out all the gains he got with Oracle and was now back down to just about break even for the month. With only $46 in buying power, he had his whole portfolio riding on ARM calls, and the stock actually did fairly well the week after that. He made an edit saying that his portfolio went back up to 16K, but he didn't post any more screenshots after that, so hopefully things are going smoothly. I'm Suffy is a user who almost destroyed his portfolio, but his first ever post was a pleasant screenshot of his portfolio that was up $8,700 for the month. He said, "Massive gains as a part-time trader. Should I keep the momentum?" A week later, he had even better news, up 10.7K just for the week. A week after that, he made his way up to 43K with a $32,000 gain for the past month. And a month after that, he posted a screenshot showing he was up $28,000 just for the day. So honestly, he was doing very well. It seemed like he was pretty consistently making money, and so far he didn't post any big losing trades. That's what it seemed like, but his next post 2 weeks later definitely took that all away. Down 99% year to date, his portfolio was now only worth $700. And it's even crazier looking at the spikes on his chart, seeing that he very consistently hit the same peak and came back to life 3 times. With only $7 in buying power, his next post was about Amazon Flex, so it seems like he did the reasonable thing and stepped away from recklessly trading and focused on working to make more money. A year went by with no updates from him, so it seemed like he called it quits there. That was until August 6th of this year. He made a few day trades this day, buying 2 DTE Shopify calls for $1,600 and selling for $4,900 later that day. And right after that, he threw $1,500 into more 2 DTE Apple puts, but started to get worried, so he sold for just a $150 profit. Eli Lilly reported earnings the following morning, and they actually beat expectations pretty hard, but had disappointing late-stage trial results for their oral obesity drug, which was ultimately more important to investors. The stock immediately opened in the red, but Suffy felt like it would fall quite a bit more throughout the day. That being said, he YOLO'd $7,000 into out-the-money 1 DTE puts. The stock kept falling that day and ended off down just over 14%. Which was great news for him. His portfolio was now worth 25.8K, and he was up 105% for the day. And even crazier is that he said he started with only $600 and some change a week prior. So he was on a pretty crazy streak, 40xing his money. A month later, he bought about $10,000 of 1 DTE Oracle puts after they reported earnings. The stock jumped almost 40% after earnings, so he figured it had to come back down at least a little. And come back down at least a little it did, falling 11% in 2 days. He sold on the day of expiration for a $15,000 gain. A week later, he was up 10K for the day, but only had $22,000 in his portfolio, which is less than before. And knowing his history, it's hard to say if he withdrew that money or if he gave it back to the market the old-fashioned way. Anyway, 6 days later, he saw the government shutdowns and thought, why not buy more calls? Which took his portfolio all the way up to $61,000. And holy smokes, 2 days later, he got another $35,000 gain with some more Tesla puts. It seemed like he was due for a loss pretty soon, but he threw $5,500 into AMD puts and $1,000 into SPY puts. The following day was once again the 130% China day, so his portfolio flew up 570%. That was great, but it means that he started the day with 7K. I'm just gonna assume he withdrew most of his money before this and didn't just crash it down to $7,000, hopefully. 3 days later though, the house of cards finally came crashing down. He started off the day with $30,000 in his Robinhood portfolio, and pretty early on, he was down $19,500. Even though he was down 64%, he kept on trading that day, buying both calls and puts. Lo and behold, his portfolio jumped back all the way up to $65,000 by the end of the day. Suffy has been on an insane journey, but that was the last update we got from him, so hopefully he stays in the green. Distinct Muffin 5058 is a user who is not from WallStreetBets, but instead the options subreddit. But honestly, it seems like his mental capacities line up pretty well with WallStreetBets. Basically, Distinct Muffin was scrolling through Reddit and came across someone claiming to make 100K with institutional data. He would bless people with his mentorship for the low price of just $5,000. And guess what? Distinct Muffin was sold, but he didn't quite have the full 5K. He said he only had $600 of birthday money, so he sent over half of that to the unknown investor. He also had his dad chip in another $1,000. Distinct Muffin, his dad, and this unknown investor all got on a Zoom call. His dad felt like they just got scammed, but Distinct Muffin had faith and kept on sending him a few $100s here and there. But 2 weeks ago, Distinct Muffin posted, "Beware of this scammer." Unsurprisingly, Broderick pulled a fast one on him. Most people commented that they didn't understand how someone could be so foolish. He wrote a really long story and I skipped over a lot of details, but hopefully he makes smarter choices in the future. Carbs Are Good is a user who has been walking on a tightrope after downloading Robinhood. His first relevant post was not to WallStreetBets, but instead to the day trading subreddit where he showed off his day trading setup. Opening Mechanic 1051 said, "Take some of those profits and finish painting the rest of your walls." And someone else said, "Boy, are you sitting on a treadmill?" 2 months later, he finally showed off his portfolio and it was currently all in on T-Rex 2x inverse leverage micro strategy. He was already down almost 52K for the day, which is weird because his poster on the wall didn't have the yearly calculation for that. 6 months later, it looks like he loaded a whole lot more money into his Robinhood account. He had $2 million on the app, but he just threw 1.1 mil into Open. The stock wasn't doing all that well at the time, so he pretty quickly lost $250,000. Hopefully it bounces back up on its own, he says. He must have been pretty shaken up after this because he went straight to the dividend subreddit asking for advice on where to park his money. But 12 days later, he came back with some positive news actually. He sold SMCX shares, which was a 2x leveraged SMCI ETF, for $140,000 in profit. Destroy Then Seek is a user who spent his birthday getting wild on Robinhood. On October 9th, he YOLO'd his whole portfolio, which was just about $5,000 on path calls. This turned out to be a pretty lucky move because the stock jumped 19% that day. But guess what? His birthday was coming up 4 days later, so he decided to have some nice, harmless fun with 0DTE options. Okay, maybe it wasn't very harmless. I effed up entirely, and wow, do I have the stats to show it. Dole Produce 2308 is a user who has had his fair share of ups and downs on WallStreetBets. Back on June 26th, he was feeling risky and threw 11.6K into app Lovin' calls that expired a week later. The stock opened in the red for the day, but started taking off pretty quickly, giving Dole Produce a $6,000 unrealized profit. Possum Turd told him that he probably should have sold, but Dole Produce responded with, "Usually I don't hold positions overnight, but I have a good feeling about this one." Oh, you have a good feeling about it? I'm all in. But it turns out he did make the right move and sold 4 days later for a $10.4 thousand profit. 2 days later, he wanted to push his luck even further and threw $9,600 into Nvidia calls that expired a week later. And somehow, he was right yet again, making a quick and easy $3,000 profit. 2 weeks later, he went even bigger and threw just about $8,000 into Nvidia calls. And honestly, there's no way to sugarcoat it, because the stock was going hard, bringing Dole Produce a $36,000 gain. Young Neil said, "Why are you hiding the numbers like it's your social security?" Which is even more strange when you can just do some simple math to find out what the numbers were, but whatever. Only 2 weeks later, he was feeling very bullish on Meta, so he threw nearly $20,000 into calls that expired about 2 months later. But Meta reported stupendous earnings and Dole Produce locked in a $52,000 profit. In Zuck we trust indeed. A month later, he got another nice $47,000 gain on CrowdShare, but 1 week after that, he posted a screenshot that wasn't so nice. Down $56,000 on Costco calls, he says it's not realized if you don't close the position. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment who had the dumbest trade.